Another situation where an utterance can raise different sorts of meanings is modification. So when there's an adjective or a relative clause or some kind of modifier, there are different ways we can interpret the relationship between that modifier and the word it's modifying. So let me give you an example. Imagine I say, I hate nasty eggplant. There's two possible interpretations of this sentence. One interpretation is like this. So imagine we have all the eggplant in the world. We can draw a circle that represents all the eggplant. And within that circle, there's a subset of that, which is nasty, right? So there's most eggplant. Some of that eggplant is nasty eggplant, and the rest is non-nasty eggplant. So this is what's called a restrictive modification, where I use nasty to restrict which kind of eggplants I'm talking about. So under this interpretation, if I say, I hate nasty eggplant, that would mean that I don't hate all eggplant, I just hate the nasty one. Maybe I'm okay with the non-nasty eggplant, right? So that's a restrictive modifier. But there's another way we can interpret this sentence. So if I say, I hate nasty eggplant, that could mean that I hate eggplant and eggplant is nasty. So that's what's called a non-restrictive modifier. We're not using nasty to restrict which kind of eggplant I'm talking about, but we're using it to sort of add some more information about eggplant. So eggplant, I hate it and it's nasty. So under this interpretation, maybe I do mean I hate all eggplant, and maybe I do mean all eggplant is nasty. So a lot of utterances with modifiers can have this kind of ambiguity, right? So something like, I hate nasty eggplant, or he's a filthy cop, right? Does that mean cops are filthy and he's a cop? Or does it mean that, you know, most cops are good, but he's one of the filthy ones? If I'm a New Yorker, maybe I might tell someone like, don't go to that particular cafe because it's always full of bougie Park Slope moms. Does that mean all Park Slope moms are bougie? Or does it mean there are some Park Slope moms that are not bougie and some that are bougie, and the ones who go to that cafe are bougie ones, right? So any utterance with modification can have this ambiguity, right? So how can we explain how we get these different interpretations? One possibility is it might be related to implicatures and Gricean maxims. So remember, several modules ago, we talked about the cooperative principle. We talked about 4 maxims of conversation. So there was the maxim of quality, the maxim of quantity, the maxim of relation, the maxim of manner. For now, let's focus on quantity. And going back to a few modules ago, remember, we said the maxim of quantity means that when we're having a conversation, we expect that people won't say more or less than what's needed, right? They won't give a lot of unnecessary information, and they also won't leave out a lot of information. So now let's think back to the sentence like, I hate nasty eggplant. My feeling is that I would be more likely to interpret that particular sentence in a non-restrictive way. So meaning, I hate nasty eggplant, meaning I hate eggplant and eggplant is nasty. It feels very unnatural to me to say a sentence like that to mean I only hate the nasty eggplant and not the other eggplant. The reason for that could be related to the maxim of quantity, right? So in particular, I think anyone would probably already assume that I hate nasty food, right? If food is nasty, I probably hate it. So if the reality were, I don't hate all eggplant, but I only hate the nasty one, why would I need to say I hate nasty eggplant? It seems kind of redundant, right? It's saying something that no one needs to hear me say, because of course, if I like eggplant, I still probably hate the ones that are nasty, because who would like nasty food? So no one would need to say a sentence like that. Saying that in meaning it in the restrictive way would sort of violate the maxim of quantity. It's not a normal way for us to talk to each other. So then all that's left is we interpret it in the non-restrictive way, right? So meaning I hate eggplant and eggplant is nasty. because a sentence like that actually provides some new information, right? It tells, if I say that sentence, I'm telling people that I think eggplant is nasty. Whereas if I say it in the restrictive way, I'm just telling people that I hate nasty food, and everyone already knows that. That's obvious. I think if we understand non-restrictive modification in this way, it also helps us understand why different sentences get interpreted different ways. So for example, like we saw before, I hate nasty eggplant. To me, that seems like it would be interpreted in a non-restrictive way. But just change the sentence a little bit to like, I hate spicy eggplant. It seems very weird for me to interpret that non-restrictively, and I think I would probably interpret it restrictively, meaning that I don't hate all eggplants, but I hate the spicy ones. Again, this kind of explanation based on maximum quantity might help explain that, because it's not a normal assumption that I always hate spicy food, right? If you don't know me, you don't necessarily know if I hate spicy food or not. So if I say I hate spicy eggplant and I mean it in the restrictive way, I just hate the spicy eggplant, not the other one, I'm still contributing some kind of new information to the conversation. So it makes sense to utter that sentence restrictively. Whereas it doesn't make sense to utter it non-restrictively, because that would mean I hate eggplant and eggplant is spicy. And that's not a true sentence, right? Eggplant is not always spicy. So that would violate the maximum of quality. But anyway, the bottom line is we have this kind of ambiguity with modification, right? So sentences with modification could be interpreted restrictively or non-restrictively. If we look at examples, we can see some where the non-restrictive interpretation seems the most natural, and we can see others where the restrictive interpretation seems the most natural. And it seems like thinking about the cooperative principle and the maxims of conversation can help us understand why certain utterances are preferentially interpreted in a restrictive way and why certain ones are preferentially interpreted in a non-restrictive way.